When we're done, it's going to look something like this. Let's do it. We got the GitHub repo in the description. So right here, we got our inspiration, and let's go over to the article page, which right now looks just like this. This is all the code. First thing, I'm going to turn this into a main, and I'm going to say BG white. And I'm going to say text black. And then also we're going to say min height screen. So if you were actually making a website like this, you would actually go into the globals and you would set your body to have background of white. But I'm going to put all the projects on this website, so I'll just do it like this. So we're also going to want this font right here. So let's go to Google Fonts, and then we'll browse some fonts. This looks like a serif font, and we'll get this one, Noto Serif. So how you do this is come in here, we're going to say import, and we're going to say from next/font/Google, and then now this will autocomplete, and this is Noto Serif. And not all of these will be in there, but a majority of them are. So now we have to say const, we'll just call this font equals Noto Serif, and we got to fill some stuff out. We'll say subsets Latin, and we'll say display of swap. So now we can come in here and we can say font dot class name. And so now we have this font. So let's take a look at this. So how I view this is in squares or rectangles. So basically half of this screen is going to be text, half of the screen is going to be these images. So the first thing we can do is say this is going to be flex, and then we come down here and we're going to create 2 divs, and each one is going to be flex 1. So now, just to show what's going on, if we say BG red 500, now half the screen will be this and half the screen will be this. At the end, I make this work with all screen sizes. For now, just make your screen about the same size as mine. So this says the cultural significance of greenhouses. So I'll just type that in right here. And we can wrap this in an H1. We can say class text 5XL. We'll see what that looks like. And we can maybe say font thin, maybe a little thicker than that. So we'll say font light. And then we can add this part right here with the image and the author name. So we come here and we'll say, so we're going to use a next image tag, and we'll say the source is equal to, and I've already got this, so I'll just say prof pic.png. And since this is local, instead of using a next image tag, I'm just going to use the HTML image tag. So now we got that right there, and we'll say class rounded full, and we'll say a size of 10. And then we're going to wrap this in a div, and we'll say this div is flex. And then we will say right here a p tag, and we'll say the author's name, which is, my name is Cole Blender. And then we come up here, and this flex, we say items center. And then we can also say gap 2. And then we got this space right here, so we can say right here a margin top of 2. Maybe we'll go 4. And then also we can come up here and say a padding everywhere of 4. And then on this H1, we can say margin top of 24. And now we can add this little button right here. So we're going to make this relative so that we can make a button component. And we'll say class absolute. And now this is going to be absolutely positioned to this parent since it's relative. This says back to list. So we'll say back to list. And then we can also say, just so we can see what's going on, a background of blue 200. We can say rounded of full. And then we can say padding of 2. We'll actually go PY of 2 and PX of 4. And then if you come over here to Lucid Icons, and then you click on their GitHub and scroll down, it gives you the script that you run in your terminal to install this. I've already done this. So once you add this to your project, go to the Lucid website, and then you type in whatever you want. You click on it, and then you can copy the SVG, or what we're going to do is copy the JSX. You come in here, paste this, and now we import this. We say import move left from Lucid React. And so now we've got it like this. So we need to turn this button into flex. and then we can say a gap of 1. So now I'm going to get rid of these colors, get rid of this red, get rid of this blue. And now to this button, we can say border. We can say border red 500. And we can turn this to black. Actually, I'm going to turn this to zinc 500. And now we can say hover BG zinc 200. And so now when we hover, it goes like this. And then we can also say transition colors duration 200, and then we say ease in out. And so now it's going to have this nice little fading effect. So now beneath this, I'm going to add some text. So we come here, I'm just going to say P, and I'm going to say do some lorem ipsum, which is just gibberish. And we can make like 2 of these, 3 of these. I'm going to wrap all of these in a div. I'm going to say a class of flex call, and I'm going to say a gap of 2, actually a gap of 4. And then I'm also going to say margin top of 5. I'm actually going to say a margin top of 10. And then instead of a gap of 4, I'm going to say gap 6. And then to make this look better, I'm going to do a different lorem ipsum for all 3 of them. And we'll just add 1 more of these and change the lorem again. And so now we pretty much have the left side of this screen going. I'm going to add these images, and then we'll work on this fading thing right here. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add these 2 buttons in the bottom right corner. So now we're working in this div right here. So I'm also going to make this relative, and I'm going to make a div. And in this div, we're going to have 2 buttons. One's going to say likes, and one is going to say replies. And we can come in here and we can say border zinc 500, py of 2, px of 4, rounded of full. And then we're just going to hard code some values in here. So this is 14K, and this will just say 342. And then we can make the div that surrounds the buttons, we can make this a flex, and then we can say a gap of 2. And then we can make this div absolute, and then we can say bottom of 0 and right of 0. And then we can come back up here and copy this transition code and add it to both of these. If you're actually doing this in production, then I would consider making a button component so that you don't have to write all of this same exact code multiple times. So now we hover over these, we get this little effect. So I added some images to the GitHub repo. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say image. We're going to say a source of slash article image1.jpg. And then we're going to add 2 more. This is going to be image 2, and this is going to be image 3. And so to me, this looks like maybe a 60-40 split between this and this. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap all of these in a div. We're going to say flex call. And then we're going to wrap this one in a div. And we're going to say flex 6. And then we're going to wrap these 2 in a div. And we're going to say flex 4. And in order for this to work, we have to wrap these in brackets. And also what we have to do is right here in this div, we have to say a height of full. And then for all of these images, we're going to say a class of rounded large. We're going to say object cover, and then we're going to say size full. And now for these 2, we're going to say flex 1, and we have to make sure that this is a flex call. And we also want some space between this. So come up to the main parent div and we'll say a gap of 4, and then we'll do the same to this one right here. And then we're also going to say a padding bottom of 20. We'll actually do 16. This is not fucking working right. So in order for this to work, we actually need to get rid of these flex 1s. We need to wrap each one of these in a div, and then each of these is going to be a flex 1. And that doesn't do fucking shit. So actually what I'm going to do is, instead of these divs, we can get rid of these. And for this, I'm going to say a height of 60%. And then I'm going to wrap this one in a div. And I'm going to say height of, we'll say 30%. And then we'll wrap this one in a div. And we'll say height of 10%. And actually what we want is both of these to be 20. And then in this bottom one right here, we're going to have a div that has nothing in it. We're going to say size full. No. We're going to make sure that this is flex with a gap of 4. We're going to say BG red 500. And then we're going to say size of full. So I'm going to say this is flex 1. I'm going to wrap this in a div. And I'm going to say flex 1. And then I'm going to come to this div right here and I'm going to say rounded large. And then we'll say the background is going to be zinc 400. We'll actually change that to blue 200. We'll go blue 100. And then we actually want to add something inside of this div. We'll add 68 plus. And then we'll come and we'll say text XL, text center, and then we'll say flex, and we'll say items center. And then we'll also say justify center. And we can get rid of this text center now. And then we can also make this maybe 4XL. So now I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to these things. So to all of the divs that hold the images, we'll say shadow large. We'll actually go XL. And then we'll just add this to all of the divs that hold the images. And so this isn't exactly like this. The dimensions aren't exactly the same. So feel free to mess around with this and get it as close to this as you can. So now the last thing, we're going to add this little fade at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say relative, and then you can put this anywhere in here that you want. I'm just going to do it at the bottom. I'm going to create an empty div tag. I'm going to say class absolute. I'm going to say inset of 0. I'm going to say BG red 400. And so you can see now this is covering all of this. And now I'm going to instead say BG gradient to bottom. And I'm going to say from transparent to white. And then boom, there you go. And you can adjust this a little bit as well. Instead of this turning to white, we can turn this into white with 50% opacity. Actually, we'll say 80. And so now the fade will actually go 90. And so now the fade is not as much. And then one last thing I'm going to do is these things are too close together. So I'm going to come up here to the main parent. I'm going to say gap of 4. And so now this is what we got. So also, if you look at this, we can't highlight any of this. So if we come to this div and we say pointer events none, and now we can highlight this. Also, if we make this screen larger, this looks pretty stupid. And if we go smaller, this also looks pretty stupid. We can easily fix that. First thing we're going to do is wrap everything that's inside of this main in a div. And then we're going to say max width 4XL. We're going to say MX auto, and we're going to say flex. And then we're also going to say gap 4. And so now when this thing gets larger, it looks good. And now to fix this when it gets smaller, if we just come to this second div, we can say hidden, and then on small it becomes block. So now it's here, and when we get smaller, it goes away. So there it is. If you learned something, subscribe. You want to learn some more? Watch this video right here. See you next time.